thanks for watching. Two of the three major party leaders squared off this past week in a debate centered around northern issues. Ontario Liberal leader Kathleen Wynne and NDP Andrea Horwath took part in the Northern Leaders debate in Thunder Bay. PC leader Tim Hudak did not take part in the debate, citing a scheduling conflict, but despite his absence, the debate still provided plenty of political intrigue. Ryan Benazzo reports.
As were the state.
The deficit, policing for small communities, and energy were among the questions posed by Thunder Bay's business community. Of course, it wouldn't be a northern debate without discussing the Ring of Fire. Thunder Bay Superior North PC candidate Derek Parks feels it's fizzled out. The NDP's Andrew Fold says people have pinned their hopes on the development, but Liberal incumbent Michael Gravel believes it's poised to go ahead.
The industry now is coming back to the table as well. We've set up a development corporation. They have seen all the companies involved, the First Nations and our other partners, that indeed with that $1 billion investment, commitment to move the transportation infrastructure forward, the work we're doing with the First Nations and the continued work we'll be doing, this project is ready to move forward.
If this current government was serious about mining development, these kinds of things would have happened years ago. If they were serious, they would have done it before Cliffs had pulled out. If they were serious, they would have made announcements long ago, not a week before a potential election, and then they wouldn't have changed the announcement during the election.
The comments I hear back from industry of what's gone on in the province is horrible. They pulled out, they felt they were held hostage and thought, we can't deal here. There's people that have left the industry and the company and feel it's going to be 10 years before this is up and running. When I hear that, I think the people of Thunder Bay, Superior North, and Northwestern Ontario need to hear what industry's saying.
Thunder Bay Atikokan PC candidate Harold Wilson and Liberal incumbent Bill Morrow were trading barbs on every issue.
He'll give you the laundry list of all of the accomplishments that the government has made, and there's an extensive list, but again, there's things that aren't on that list are also very important. And when you talk about things like the forest industry, well, that's because it was a recession. Or you talk about some of these, well, that's because those things happened. You know, you cannot take credit for everything and responsibility for nothing.
The economy is relatively strong compared to most jurisdictions in Ontario, not just about Bombardier. We've diversified it as well. We haven't talked about the law school. We haven't talked about the creation of Thunder Bay Regional Research Institute, which has over 100 scientists working in it, that came with $15 million of support for that enterprise, which perhaps some of my friends to the right might consider corporate welfare. We've done our best on your behalf.
Thunder Bay Atikokan NDP candidate Mary Kazoris was unable to attend for personal reasons. It's unlikely many minds were swayed at the forum. The crowd was largely made up of dedicated supporters of the respective candidates. Dennis Ward, TBT News.
The three main candidates in Kenora-Rainy River faced off in a debate in Kenora on Tuesday night. The economy, mining, forestry, and First Nation issues all played a role as the evening unfolded. But social services and the public sector dominated the discussion. John Thompson has that story.
Candidates from the three major parties in the Kenora-Rainy River riding agree Ontario's economy needs improvement. They each spoke about their solutions.
We will take care of your money, and we'll make sure that you're happy where your tax dollars go.
We have a financial crisis in the province of Ontario, but that doesn't mean that we just stop government.
If we lose jobs, it's going to come from the public sector, which is something we rely on a lot right now.
A decidedly social service-oriented crowd defied expectations at the Kenora and District Chamber of Commerce debate, forcing candidates to depart from the provincial campaign's central economic themes. Liberal Anthony Leake is in the position of being a local challenger from the incumbent government. He framed his candidacy as change for better communication.
We need to promote those strengths to the people that are decision makers so they know that the investments they make here support the local economy, the regional economy, and Ontario as a whole.
Progressive Conservative Randy Nickel stayed on message through the three-hour debate, arguing jobs and balanced budgets were priorities that will improve all else.
Whether it's energy costs, whether it's just what we pay for taxes, again, we have a bold vision of what we're going to do to balance the books. In 2 years, we will have our deficit balanced.
Incumbent Sarah Campbell stood on a platform of balance between social and fiscal responsibility, promising to maintain frontline services and stimulate the economy.
We're going to shrink cabinet. We're going to consolidate agencies that overlap. We don't need the duplication. We do need frontline care, but we don't need to, as I said, have 4 different hydro bureaucracies that can all be performed under one roof.
This was the second and final debate for the Kenora Rainy River candidates. Debates have traditionally been held in Dryden and Fort Francis, but not in this election. As the campaign enters the home stretch leading to June 12th, the candidates took their last chance to make their intentions clear. John Thompson, TDT News.
Anthony Leek was a little-known candidate when he ran in the last election. The forest industry was crashing down, and the last-minute candidate for the governing Liberals collected less than 10% of the vote. But as John Thompson reports, Leek is emerging as a far different contender this time around.
In 2011, Liberal Anthony Leek finished a distant third in the Kenora Rainy River riding, but in political years, that was a long time ago.
I've learned a lot since last time. In the last 2.5 years, I've spent a lot of time rebuilding the riding association and learning what the ins and outs of provincial government as well as municipal government and their relationships.
Leek is now the deputy mayor of Emo and is the vice president of the Ontario Liberal Party's northern region. Under his leadership, Liberal memberships have increased from 60 to 100 in the riding, and monthly donations have doubled to $1,000. Leek feels the NDP's 2-decade reign in opposition is leaving the riding out in the cold.
Whether it's through NOHFC, whether it's through infrastructure funding, Northern Energy Credit would be an example of that too. There is things coming in through this riding that are helping us in every way, shape, or form in our everyday lives. It's just unfortunate that people don't actually know that because our MPP and the party NDP have just been saying, oh yeah, nothing happens here. And I think the truth needs to come out, the investments that actually have been made here. And that's something I want to share with citizens of this riding.
Economic fortunes are projected to rise in the next decade due to increased resource projects, but Leek foresees a growth of a different kind. He wants to put the arable land west of Fort Francis on the map with promises to develop the agricultural sector.
Forestry and mining is key, but also agriculture is really important. We need to see that come back up. I think that's really important. You look at the Rainy River District alone, and there's about 200,000 acres worth of land that could be used for different types of farming. That's really important. We see the opportunities for mining. We also see opportunities when it comes back into forestry as well. Tourism is obviously a part of that as well. If we can continue to diversify and expand that economy, then we can maintain that sustainability.
John Thompson, TBT News.
The chair of Kenora's brand implementation strategy is vying to put the PC brand on the Kenora Rainy River riding. The owner of an A&W and other retail businesses, Randy Nickel, is hoping voters will paint the riding blue for the first time since Leo Bernier held it in 1987. Times have since changed, but Nickel argues so have the Conservatives. Mike Albanese reports.
When he was 20 years old, Randy Nickel moved from Dryden to Kenora to buy his first business. He's now looking to leap from the private sector into government, and he's taking aim at taxes and red tape he has dealt with for decades.
Right now, with mining and forestry isn't in full blossom, there's a lot of entrepreneurs and small businesses who would like to expand or are interested in making things work in a different way, but they're just being scooped up and sucked into this big hole called regulations. Some regulations are great, but at the end of the day, you know what? There's at least a third of the regulations that are out there that are strangling small business.
If elected, the Progressive Conservatives have promised to balance the budget within 2 years. In the third year, they promised to deliver on stumpage fees for the North and resource sharing revenues for municipalities and First Nations.
Whether it's new mines that we open up or whether it's trees and stumpage fees, right now there's fees that always go down to Toronto. And those fees that go to Toronto, that's where they head. So sure, we have the businesses here that are employing people and they're making some revenue, but the fees all go down to Toronto. Our plan will be that we're going to share those resources with the people of the North.
Nickel promises to approve at least 10 new mines in the next 5 years and dig out the hole he says renewable energy has sunk Ontario into. The Conservatives would open the door for privatization of energy utilities and end Ontario's experiment with green power.
We will repeal the Green Energy Act, and that's regarding the solar panels and wind turbines that are out there. So any new or existing contracts we will not write any new contracts. So that's an extremely important part of our electrical policy. And we're going to be looking at the ministries from top to bottom and look for the waste.
Mike Albanese, TBT News.
NDP Sarah Campbell won the Kenora Rainy River seat for the first time in the last election and brought an ambitious agenda to Queen's Park. Despite having been in opposition, her re-election campaign stands on her laurels. John Thompson reports.
3 years ago, Sarah Campbell was a staffer for long-serving MPP Howard Hampton. She stood on her own in 2011, and now she stands as Kenora Rainy River's incumbent.
It's been a great experience. I've enjoyed every minute of it. I still get to do the things that I really enjoyed doing when I worked for the former member, which is helping people one-on-one, having that close relationship, but I get the added bonus of having more control over my agenda, of advancing some of the issues that are really important to me.
Those issues included introducing a private members bill that would have outlawed private energy retailers and an attempt to remove HST from home heating costs, both cut short by prorogation and the election. She took part in responsibility for pressuring the Liberals to develop an accountability office, but no legislation passed before the election. She championed an all-party committee to examine winter highway maintenance contracts, but although it passed, the committee didn't sit before the election was called.
We are limited in what we are able to concretely accomplish with this current Liberal government. I mean, they've been mired in scandal. They've made some spending decisions that I certainly don't agree with or support.
If she's re-elected, Campbell vows to bring that agenda back to Queen's Park. But there's one thing she sees becoming central on both the economic and social fronts for Northwestern Ontario: power.
I would honestly have to say affordability and jobs. I think the two are related. I might err on the side of affordability, bringing down our hydro rates, because that helps individuals, it helps families, it helps seniors stay in their homes longer. It also helps create business. You know, it's instrumental to having a strong forest industry. It's instrumental to see our mining projects get off the ground.
John Thompson, TBT News.
Well, coming up after this short break, we continue our candidate profiles, this time those running in Thunder Bay Atikokan riding. Stay tuned. Four candidates are contending for the Thunder Bay Atikokan riding. Liberal incumbent Bill Morrow says he's proud of what he's been able to do over the region over the past 10 years. And as Dennis Ward reports, Morrow is happy to run on his record.
Bill Morrow is certainly a familiar face on the political landscape in Northwestern Ontario. He was a member of Thunder Bay City Council for 6 years before jumping into provincial politics in 2003. During his time as the Liberal MPP for Thunder Bay Atikokan, Morrow believes he's delivered significant improvements for the riding. Among them, seeing the region's 2 coal plants converted to burn biomass and bringing angioplasty services to the regional hospital.
Approximately 700 people a year now receiving that service locally. Those people had to leave the community. 4-laning highways, major construction initiatives, 1,200 jobs at Bombardier directly related to our major investments in mass transit. So we've significantly impacted the economy in a positive way. We have significantly impacted healthcare in a very positive way, education in a very positive way.
Morrow was named Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing shortly before the election was called. He believes having elected representatives in government and at the cabinet table can enhance a politician's ability to represent their constituents. The Liberals are running on their recently released budget. Morrow says there is a lot at stake.
You can talk about indexing the minimum wage. You can talk about increases in support for personal support workers. You can talk about an Ontario pension plan that we think is a great idea, given that 66% of people do not have a pension plan. These are things that were not supported. When you talk specifically about what's at risk, major infrastructure spending, we believe, is at risk.
The Liberal candidate considers Thunder Bay to be better off than it was not that long ago. Morrow says the local economy has been one of the strongest in the province and feels his party's initiatives have something to do with that. Dennis Ward, TBT News.
Well, Harold Wilson is again running for the Progressive Conservative Party after also carrying the party banner in the 1990 provincial vote. Rochelle Sufi has more.
Harold Wilson was born and raised in Thunder Bay. He's been happily married for 17 years now and has 3 daughters. Previously, he was the Thunder Bay president of Chamber of Commerce and this past semester taught 5 courses at Confederation College in international business. Wilson says for the last 25 years, he's worked in economic development.
The work that I've done has usually been, how do we help our economy to grow? I worked with small businesses as a consultant to get businesses to start up. I worked on policy issues for forestry, mining, value-added agriculture. I worked on oil and gas projects when I was out west, trying to bring more jobs and more investment into an area.
You might recognize the Wilson last name as he has a lot of family in the city. Wilson says he comes from a small business background.
Every single time there's new regulations, new requirements, someone's got to get that done. And it comes down to the small business owner. So they either have to have additional costs, additional time, all those things that are keeping them from actually running their business and hiring people. So I guess I've always been rather sensitive to the impacts of government. And as government grows and is more demanding on people, and those are the ones that are creating the employment, those are the ones that are generating the wealth and the taxes. I've always been quite sensitive to that.
Although he has lived in Thunder Bay his whole life, he says his travels to the other districts gave him new knowledge and experience that he can now bring as the new MPP.
So I go away for a few years, then come back, and that's really worked for me. It's given me different experiences and different opportunities, and get to meet some new people, and also to find out how they do things in other jurisdictions. And so I always bring that back.
Rochelle Sufi, TBT News.
In the upcoming provincial election, Mary Kazoris is the Thunder Bay Atikokan candidate for the NDP. Last time around, she missed the win by 400 votes and is looking to avoid a close call in this election. Phil Darlington caught up with Kazoris to get a rundown on who she is and what she brings to the table.
Mary Kazoris is no stranger to the politics of Thunder Bay and Atikokan. Kazoris says she has a passion for the people and issues affecting her riding, and she has a lot of experience as a link for the people to the members of Parliament over the past decade.
Working for 2 members of Parliament and being acutely aware of how the various levels of government have to function together to bring answers to our constituents and to bring the issues forward.
Kazoris has many personal ties to the community. She sees firsthand the areas in need of improvement in the healthcare system, as her own father is facing access problems being encountered by many others in Thunder Bay Atikokan.
Facing the issue of being able to get the appropriate home care, also being able to get the interim care that is required, especially as we're transitioning in a period of trying to determine what meets his needs best, and also for somebody whose first language is not English, and realizing those challenges again when you are trying to access health services.
Her family has been in the Thunder Bay area for a long time, and Kazoris says she's seen a lot of change in the city. She believes strongly that a good education will help prepare the next generation to be active members in the community.
Two parents that came here in 1948 with nothing but the desire and will to do not only better for themselves but for their family. I grew up in the east end of Fort William, and I think it was really my parents who pushed us to be better citizens, pushed us to get involved, and certainly pushed us into aspiring for post-secondary education, which is something that both my husband and I have instilled in our kids.
Phil Darlington, TPT News.
With only days remaining before the provincial election, Thunder Bay Atikokan candidate John Northey is hard at work trying to paint the town green. In this candidate profile, Mike Albany has caught up with the Green Party nominee to find out what drove him to run in this election.
John Northey has only lived in Thunder Bay for a few years. He was born and raised in southern Ontario, but his wife was originally from Atikokan, and they always dreamed of heading back north.
I'm a computer programmer by trade. I've been doing that for quite a few years now. I also have degrees in statistics and economics. My three daughters are the center of my life, of course, and fourth child on the way come September, which is very exciting and is part of why I'm part of the Green Party. The desire to see things being better for them in the future.
With the drive to better his four children's lives in the future, Northey joined up with the Green Party. He says there are issues like corruption and bad math that usually take the main stage in politics, but he wants to focus on the real core issues.
I think core issues need to be in areas like the economy, which is a very big issue up here with the Ring of Fire, of course, and education should always be a core issue, in my opinion. Of course, having three daughters, that does kind of force it to the front for me.
Northey feels he is the best candidate because he truly appreciates the Northwest. Northey says he can focus on bettering his riding even if it goes against his party's platform because the Green Party allows its candidates to do what they think is best for their constituents. That's a benefit he says other parties do not have.
The other parties have very strict controls on their members of parliament, and we have seen that seen members from the Northwest be kicked out of their parties in the past. And if I am up there, I will fight for the Northwest from start to finish. And I will make sure that the people in Southern Ontario understand just how unique this area is and what the true needs are up here.
Mike Albanese, TPT News.
Well, Dryden resident Bruce Montague has lost an appeal that sought to prevent the forfeiture of firearms and gun parts. I'll have that story for you coming up after the short break. Dryden resident Bruce Montague has lost an appeal that sought to prevent the forfeiture of hundreds of firearms and gun parts. In court, Montague had argued that the seizures sought by the Crown amounted to cruel and unusual punishment under the Charter. He was sentenced to jail in 2008 for 26 offenses related to firearms and refusing to obtain a license to own and sell weapons. Police seized more than 200 firearms, some of which have been modified into automatic weapons, while others had their serial numbers removed. Montague is a former firearms dealer and pro-gun activist. His lawyer calls the ruling grossly disproportionate. And a Greenstone Area First Nation is raising red flags about the environmental assessment submitted for a proposed Geraldton gold mine. Araland First Nation is rejecting Premier Gold's plans for its open-pit hard rock mine. The First Nation claims the future mine will destroy a nearby lake which supports the Aboriginal fishery. According to Araland Chief Sonny Gagnon, Premier intends to drain the 16-acre lake and fill it with mine waste known as tailings. He's calling the potential environmental impact shocking, and he condemns what seems as inadequate consultation with his community. Well, thanks for watching Northwest Newsweek. We'll see you next time.